Have you ever wondered if what you've already done as a pre-PT or what you're doing right now is enough to stand out to the schools that you're applying for? In a moment, what I would love to share with you is I would love to share with you the one mistake that costs students tens of thousands of dollars each year as pre-PTs. Students that want to become physical therapists that don't realize that this one mistake is likely costing them their entire career and taking them down a path where they think they might have to have a backup career or another option, which you do not have to have that. There is a way for you to feel confident and clear on what your next steps need to be as a student. And if you haven't followed Pre-PT Grind for a long time, my name is Joseph Gugi. I'm a physical therapist, one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Grind, where for years we've helped students get into physical therapy school without wasting time or money. All right. And the reason why this is important is because this matters to you. This is your life. This is how you want to help people. This is how you want to serve people. And our job is to be the bridge for you, especially in moments where you don't feel like you're good enough. You don't know where to go next. We have quite a few students who have gotten on a call with one of our team members and have said, everyone in my family and my advisor are telling me to have a backup option because my grades are too low or because I've been rejected before, and they don't want that, and they can't seem to find another career that makes sense. And so they're just stuck. They're in this game of just not knowing what their next moves need to be. So I'm going to share with you something that has been a game changer for the students that we've worked with over the years. And if you leverage it, it has the ability to help you as well. All right, you ready? So let's dive in. Let's talk about the number one mistake that is costing so many pre-PTs tens of thousands of dollars every single year. And if students just unlock this, they would be able to help themselves get into PT school. And so here's what it is. Write this down. Grab a piece of paper. The number one mistake is spending time on the things that they assume matter to the school. Are you following me? So spending all of my energy, all of my time on the things that I think will help the school or that I think allow the school to see me as a strong applicant. In fact, just yesterday I had a call with a student that was asking questions and looking to see if they could work with us. So we have coaching programs. And so this student was talking about where they were at. And so I said, okay, well, what's your current game plan? And they're like, my goal is to have, I believe their plan was to have several thousand shadowing hours. They're like, if I have all these hours, then the school will know that I am serious about becoming a physical therapist. And I've tried all these experiences, all these things right now. At the same time, what was also happening is this is a student that had lower grades, right? So they had a lower GPA. And so I was like, okay, interesting. So you believe that, and I'll just ask him, I was like, so you believe that if you have all these hours and experiences, then the school will essentially overlook the lower grades, correct? And they were like, I hope so. So I was like, wow, so most of your energy is going towards what you think the school will want. So I asked the student, I was like, do you actually know what the school wants? For sure. And they're like, I think so. I was like, are you positive what the school wants? Yeah. I was like, okay. Like, how would you say you found that out? They're like, I've seen other students get a bunch of hours. I've heard it in threads. I've heard this. And I don't know, like, is that what they want? And I was like, not the school, right? And so this was a major unlock for this student. And in that moment, what I did is I said, okay, let's talk about the conversation we're having right now. We were about 20 minutes into the conversation. And the mind-blowing piece was that up until that point, I had done probably 10% of the talking, which is on purpose, by the way, because I was asking questions and then having the students tell me more about their situation so that I can better guide them. Are you following? So I said, okay, take a look at this conversation. How would it have felt, is what I asked the student. I said, how would it have felt if I showed up to this call and I just started giving you tips and strategies and all that stuff? And even if the strategies I was giving you were exactly what you wanted to hear or were exactly what you needed to hear, how would it have felt if I just didn't ask you any questions about yourself and I just went straight into coaching? How would that have felt? And the student said, it would have felt like you didn't really care, or you didn't really care about me specifically. It would have felt like you saw me just like any other student. And I was like, interesting. I was like, what if that's the same experience that happens with schools? And I could see the light bulb turning on for the student. Never thought of it that way. I said, check it out. Even though, and this is a student who had previously spoken to one of our team members, and so I had a pretty good idea of their situation. And I was like, I technically could have just dove straight into coaching. However, what I understand about how the brain works and how humans work is knowing for sure what the other person is looking for is super, super beneficial, super helpful. The more I know about you, the better I can help you. And I was like, does that make sense? Is what the student was like, yeah, makes perfect sense. I was like, cool. So how did I find out exactly what you needed? And they're like, you asked me questions. I was like, exactly. I spent time getting to understand you. The better I understood you, the better I could give you exactly what you needed. I was like, what if that's exactly what schools want? What if schools just want you to understand what they actually are looking for? And I was like, instead of assuming that I know what they want, what if I actually figured out what they actually wanted? Does that make sense? And so as a listener right now, right? So this is just what we have found over the years. Whenever students that we've worked with have spent time getting to understand the school, getting to understand what schools actually want, getting to understand that schools have fears, right? Schools have fears that they might accept you into their program and you might not make it through. Now that makes them look bad. We've said this many times on social media, right? It makes them look bad because think about it. And this is an example I've given a lot. If a school accepts a new class and half of that class gets kicked out of the program during those 3 years of PT schooling, how does that look on the school's part? Think about it from the perspective of you're applying to a school that has a 50% success rate. Would you want to apply to that school? The answer is no for many of us. And the reason why is because we'd say to ourselves, I'll go to that school and I have 50% of a chance to get to what I actually desire, which is becoming a physical therapist. I don't know if it's worth that risk. But if I went to a school where they had a 97% success rate, then I'm like, oh yeah, I have confidence. All I got to do is get into that program and I know that they're going to help me get to the other side and become a physical therapist. Does that make sense? So schools know that if they don't have a high success rate, it affects your ability to apply. And that is bad for business as well. Think about it from that lens. And so if one of their fears is your ability to perform academically, then even if you have low grades, and I'm telling you this after having clients that we've had, and if you followed us for a bit, you've heard us share some of the stories, clients who have had 2.4 GPAs after graduating college, clients who have had 2.54, 2.6, clients who have been rejected 4 years in a row prior to eventually getting accepted into a program. So these are things that we have seen. However, even with those students, the key was in first understanding what the school actually wants, and then saying, okay, I can't go back in time. I don't got a time travel machine. So with what I do have right now, how can I increase the confidence in the schools that I'm applying to? How can I increase the confidence in them that if they pick me to be in their program, I will not be a risk? Does that make sense? So here are some examples of what that looks like. So now it's okay. So the school actually says they want certain like grades, right? Certain GPAs. Number one, that changes like which school I applied to. So part of it is I need to actually learn how to choose the right schools that give me the highest chance of getting in, right? Part of it is also saying, cool, if I have lower grades, especially with classes like your prerequisites, right? So if I have, and this is not a coaching session, but I'm just helping you understand this, right? So if for the school, if their biggest fear is that they're nervous that I might not be able to finish the program, then how can I show them that the student I am now is capable of freaking crushing it as a DPT student? Well, I can retake prereq classes. Now, here's the thing. A lot of students are like, I don't want to retake prereq classes. Then ask yourself, what do you want more? Do you want to become a PT or do you want to avoid taking a class? Because if your desire to avoid retaking chemistry or retaking physics, if that desire to avoid that is greater than your desire to be a PT, then maybe this isn't the right career for you. However, if you can keep the right perspective in mind and understand that, no, I am doing this because I want to become a physical therapist, then in that moment, you have to ask yourself, is it worth me retaking that class to get an A when previously I got a C or a D? Does that make sense? And now create some new questions. You see how now we're shifting the way we operate, because if now I'm looking at a class and I'm like, I didn't want to retake it because I don't think I can get a better grade. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So now what that means is we have to improve our learning strategies, right? So that's solvable, super solvable. I've seen it with students that you heard some of the GPAs that I said, those were students that struggled academically before, right? And so now it's cool. Do I have a resource or a guide or someone that can help me improve my learning strategy so that when I retake these classes, I'm actually getting an A? Like with our clients, we don't even go for a B. We don't go for a C++. No, we're going for an A, because what that does is it shifts how the school sees you. So for example, we had a student, and I hope this is helping, by the way, because the goal is I don't want you to assume. Assuming is the number one thing that costs the students tens of thousands. And side note, the reason why I say tens of thousands is because you might have heard me say this before. However, anytime I don't get in, so for example, let's say I'm applying to PT school and I'm like, this is the year, yet I don't set myself up to be the best possible applicant I can be, which there is always another move. There's always a next step. There's always something you can do. And so if I don't do that properly, then here's what happens. If I get rejected, then that's a year removed from becoming a PT. So that's another year that I won't be a PT. And so what that means is that's a whole annual salary gone, right? So let's say that's $80,000. That means that every year I don't get into PT school, I am losing $80,000, right? It's opportunity cost, right? Which is why I want you to start asking yourself, am I willing to take this journey seriously so that I'm not in the game of having to reapply over and over again and then eventually crossing my fingers and thinking, maybe this is not meant to be. Because I hear that line a lot, maybe this is not meant to be, when in reality, it's just that maybe I just don't have the right guidance to make sure that I have the highest chance possible of getting a yes from the schools. Y'all, it's human beings on the other side picking whether or not you're going to be in their program. So why not learn how they think so that you can shift your application and turn yourself into the perfect applicant for them? Is this still making sense? Okay, cool. So here's a story that I was going to share with you, and then we'll wrap it up for this episode. We had a student. She's currently a physical therapist, actually. So I'm starting with the end of the story, and she's actually one of the coaches in our coaching program now. However, back when she was a pre-PT, she had a lower GPA. I can't quite remember if it was a 2.7 or 2.8. However, both her prereq GPA and her overall GPA were fairly similar. And so first time she applied to PT school, got rejected. Right now, remember, a lot of students go and say, all right, let me just assume that I know what the schools want. So what most students would do is, let me just go get a bunch of observation hours and show the school that I love the profession. Right? However, it's not increasing their certainty that I can make it through their program. Remember, I have to deal with the fear first that they have. And so this student was like, okay, my overall GPA, my prereq GPA is not as high as it needs to be, or at least as high as I want it to be. And so she shifted the schools she was going to apply to because she ended up working with us. And we built her an acceptance plan. And what happened was we realized that there was one thing that could really catapult her. And that one thing was her prerequisite GPA. Because remember, the prerequisite GPA is out of a smaller number of classes, meaning that if I have 3 classes that are C's and I turn those C's into an A, it has the ability to drastically change my GPA. Does that make sense? And so she looked at her prereq GPA, she said, there's certain classes that I just did not do well in. Can I shift my learning strategies, master how to learn, so that by the time, and that's the biggest challenge for most of us, is no one ever taught us how to learn. No one ever sat us down and told us, here's exactly how to pull this off. No one did, which is why we feel lost and all over the place. And so she said, I'm going to master my learning strategies. And so obviously we coached her, worked with her directly. She retook these classes and did so well that her prereq GPA shifted from somewhere around that 2.7, 2.8 range to closer to a 3.5, right? Now check it out. She goes to reapply, right? If you're a school, think about it from the school's perspective. Sometimes we just need to take a moment and consider the other side. Consider how the school sees us. So see it from the school's perspective. You see a student who the first time they applied had a 2.8 or 2.7 prereq and probably around the same for their overall GPA. And the second time they apply, they've shown you that the version of them now, the student they are now, is ready for doctorate level classes. And how have they proven that? By improving their learning strategies and showcasing that through their grades that are much, much better. So now when she applied, the schools are like, okay, the version of you now, we actually love it. Here's the wildest part. The wildest part is a lot of the schools that she ends up applying to end up noticing something different. They're like, you actually have a lot of resilience. Sometimes when we have the biggest challenges that we're experiencing as a student, we sometimes think that's going to be a stain on our journey for a long time. Listen to me very closely. When you're able to make a comeback, when you're able to show how you're able to navigate through some of the darkest moments, and many times we need help from other people, you're showing how resilient you are. You're showing that when you're pinned to a corner, you know how to get back up and keep moving forward. So when this student is showing that, they're showing, hey, whatever happens during this program while in PT school, I know how to get back up when things do not go as planned. I am resilient. I'm not just telling you I'm resilient. I am showing you that I'm resilient through how I performed. Does that make sense? And those are the students that get schools to smile. Right? Those are the students that instantly don't feel like a risk to the DPT program. And more importantly, those are the students that have enough self-trust, self-confidence is another word for it, to be able to say, you know what, whatever is thrown at me in PT school, I know for sure I'm going to be able to crush it. Does that make sense? And that comes from erasing this word, assume. Most students really are guessing. Most students are assuming they know what the school wants. So instead of spending time assuming, get to know what they really want. And then ask yourself, what elements of my application am I running away from? What elements of my journey do I need to just get better in? And then if I don't know how to do that, who do I need to recruit? Who do I need to get help from to help me actually pull that off? For the students we talk about, they ended up working with us directly, right? And so for you, ask yourself, like, who is going to help me deal with the details? Instead of me trying to, you can't trick the schools. You can't be like, don't worry about the grades. Look at all my hours. The schools aren't dumb, right? However, schools are also looking for certain things, and there's certain parts of your application that you might think are important that the school actually wouldn't agree is as important as maybe something else that you may be avoiding. Does that make sense? And if you can do that, you will unlock the ability to get into the career that you were designed for. And so I hope this has been helpful. I would love to know in the comment section below, what did this episode say to you? Like, real talk, please let me know in the chat section. What did this episode say to you? And please share this out with anyone else that you believe would benefit from this. Be sure to like, subscribe, of course, and binge on all of the other content that we have. And I hope this at least unlocked your mind. And for those of you that are like, you know what, Joseph, this was eye-opening. Where do I start? How do I get started? How do I get closer to feeling in control and confident in my own journey so that I can get into my dream program and be empowered that I will be able to get through PT school? That's another fear that we have as well. And so if you want that, then I'm going to give you a very simple link to go to where we're going to start serving you right now. Go to this link. Go to acceptanceguides.com. acceptanceguides.com. When you go there, you'll see some free guides that will actually help you start navigating through this journey. And then, of course, we'll be reaching out to you and communicating with you and seeing how we can help. But this is super, super doable. All of this is super doable. Don't give up on the journey, but also don't assume don't assume anything. Always ask yourself, what does the school actually want? How can I get in their mind? And then what elements of my journey am I running away from? That if I learned how to navigate through it, I'd be able to be a much stronger applicant and on my way to living the career of my dreams. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. We'll see you on the next episode. Much love. Bye.